Good evening and welcome to the November 12th Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education meeting. I'm Shay Woodbury, Board Chair, and I appreciate your attendance and also say good evening to our Channel 2 viewers. Will you please rise as we start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing during our invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray together. Tonight we pray for our families who have recently lost the life of their precious children due to gun violence. May they be blessed by this board as well as our community. In ending, may we all say together, no more, no more, no more. Amen. Amen.
Before we begin with the agenda review, I would like to say November is designated as Native American Alaska Native Heritage Month, or as it is commonly referred, American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month. Did you know that there are 573 federally recognized Native America and Alaska Native tribes and villages in the United States, with 8 tribes located here in North Carolina with their own language, culture, history, traditions, and values. Therefore, this is a time for our schools and community to celebrate their rich and diverse cultures and traditions and teach historical truths. It is a time to acknowledge the struggles Native people have faced in the past as well as the present, and a time that we should acknowledge and celebrate the many important contributions of the Native American people. And I thank our new Diversity and Equity Officer, Effie McMillan, for preparing that for me to say thank you. The first item on the order of business tonight is the agenda review. And I think we need to make an amendment to the agenda tonight to add the assistant principal supplements as an action item.
Motion. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item will be our special recognitions, and if we can have Brad Royal come up, and I think next Sarah Harming and Tiffany Turner.
Dr. Hairston, Chairman Woodbury, and all of our board members and our guests here, thank you so much for allowing me the honor to be able to come out tonight to share some really good news with you. As you all are very aware, some amazing things are going on at Reagan, or like we like to call it, Raider Nation. And parents will ask me, and people in the community will ask me, well, why are these things going on? And there's 3 pretty simple things that we like to refer to. Our students are really bought into what we're trying to do, and we have a group of parents who really support and bought into our school's vision. But the one thing that is really the most amazing is that we have this phenomenal staff. And I'm excited to be able to share some amazing news about one of these outstanding staff members who's here with me tonight. Wendy Bartlett is one of our math teachers, and she recently received the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematical and Science Teaching. I want to thank her family, who she said was watching on TV tonight. For some reason, it must be cold outside. But she does have some peers in the crowd that I want to say thank you for coming out to support her. This award is the highest and most prestigious award provided to K-12 educators across our nation, as it recognizes teachers who have both a deep content knowledge and the ability to motivate and engage students. Our state was represented by 4 award winners this past year, one of whom was Ms. Bartlett. Our school system has only had 1 winner in the history of this award, which began in 1983. So with Wendy receiving this award, it places her among the most distinguished teachers in our school system in our state as well as our nation. Miss Bartlett is one of those rocks in our school that I feel like the foundation of our success is built on at Reagan. In my 25-year career of doing this, I've never worked with a better high school math teacher than Miss Bartlett. Her passion for learning, her relentless pursuit of helping students achieve, and her genuine compassion for students are the fabric of her teaching soul. In order to teach students, we all know that you first have to get to know them and build a rapport with them. One of our district core values is that we must be student-centered, and we believe that students are at the heart of what we do. Once a student trusts you as a teacher and recognizes that you genuinely care about them, then learning becomes very much more applicable, and it becomes much easier. So I want to ask our board members to join me with something. I want to ask everyone in the crowd, I want you to think back for just a moment about your favorite teacher. And everybody instantaneously thought about who that person was, right? Well, I asked some students to describe Miss Bartlett, that I could share that with you tonight. And as I'm sharing these things, I'm going to ask, does any of this resonate with you? One student said, Miss Bartlett is an outstanding teacher because she strives to make us better. She's very caring about us. She works so hard to help us. Another student said, Miss Bartlett always strives to help me be my best. Even when I felt like I couldn't, she knew that I could. Miss Bartlett goes above and beyond to teach us no matter how much extra help we need. And then another student said, Miss Bartlett was determined to make sure that everyone understood what she was teaching. All of these kids talked about how Miss Bartlett treated them. It's truly my belief that people are not going to remember us for things like how we taught them to use a calculator or the FOIL method. See, I'm showing off my math knowledge here. They're not going to remember how good her hair looked. I mean, look at me, come on. They're not going to remember how artistic or athletic or none of that stuff. That's not what people are going to remember about us. People are going to remember how we treated them. Because just like we remembered what it was like to be a student and to think back about those favorite teachers, our students will always remember how we made them feel. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you'll join me tonight in recognizing a truly phenomenal teacher, an amazing mother, and just an exceptional person, Miss Wendy Bartlett, this year's winner of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematical and Science Teaching. Congratulations. Those of you that have taught with Wendy or worked with Wendy in the past, would you mind standing up for just a second? I know Kay's here and a couple others in the back. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Harrison, Chair Woodbury, and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Tiffany Turner, and I'm the Youth Market Director with the American Heart Association representing this county. I would like to thank the 36 Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools that participated with our organization last year. They participated in the Kids Heart Challenge program, which is a whole child-focused program that gets kids having fun moving, thinking more healthily, and becoming more empathetic through community service. This year, our students will take one of 3 heart-healthy challenges for 21 days. They can choose to move more, be kind, or be prepared. And we'll also be asking the principals at each of our schools in the district to also take the challenge. This means that if a principal accepts, they'll choose from one of those same 3 challenges and ask that every student at their school do the same. Every school that reaches 50% or more of their student body taking the Heart Healthy Challenge will earn their first $500 raised back to their school in addition to all the other funds that they will earn. Last year, the American Heart Association was excited to present over $11,870 to our PE programs at the 36 participating schools. Those funds that are collected from the Kids Heart Challenge are used for life-saving heart heart research, and educational resources. So because of your district support, more lives are being saved. Now, before I recognize the top 3 Kids Heart Challenge fundraising schools in the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School District, I did want to recognize Piney Grove Elementary with Kaylee Fox, the PE teacher, and Brendan Elkins, the principal, with the Spirit of the Heart Award. If you'll come up. It has been such a pleasure to work with their school, and they have such a strong history of participation with the program. Kaylee came in as a young professional, eager to fill the shoes of her predecessor and make her own way. Their open and inviting personalities made for a successful event last year, and I'm excited to work with them again this year. Now I'd like to recognize the 3 schools that took and met Dr. Emery's Superintendent Challenge. Last year, Dr. Emery challenged each of our schools to also have 50% or more of their student body take a Heart Healthy Challenge, and we had 3 that did it. First is Smith Farm Elementary with Elizabeth Bunyak, PE teacher, and Cynthia Rash, their principal. Not sure if they're here today, but we'll recognize them. Next, we have Walkertown Middle School with Keyshawn Bishop, PE teacher, Catherine Ward, PE teacher, and Ian Muncie, principal. And the third school was Kernersville Middle School with Craig Thompson, PE teacher, and Lisa Duggins, principal. All right, now I would like to recognize the top 3 Kids Heart Challenge schools in the district in terms of fundraising. Coming in third last year was Southwest Elementary with Matt Saldivari, PE teacher, and Summer Jackson, principal, who raised $11,441. Southwest Elementary took the top 3 spot this year because of their enthusiasm for the Kids Heart Challenge program. Matt is so organized, and he really knows how to get his kids pumped and excited, and is really passionate about the cause. So thank you, Matt and Summer. Coming in second is Louisville Elementary with Neil Plouffe, PE teacher, and Angie Choplin, principal, who raised $11,492 this last year. Louisville Elementary's Neil and Angie truly embody the heart and character of service. They're such great examples to the students of this district about what it means to participate and make a local impact. So thank you, Neil and Angie. And coming in first is Clemens Elementary with Katie Camera, PE teacher, and Dr. Wendy Brewington, principal, who raised $20,159 this past school year. They will also be receiving a plaque for coming in 10th highest fundraising school for the state of North Carolina. So I cannot commend and honor Katie and Dr. Brewington enough for their hard work, education, and leadership. The kids at Clemens truly understand how they're making an impact in the lives of other children, and they have fun taking care of each other's hearts. Katie is such an outstanding physical education teacher, and she truly empowers her students to live healthier lives. I cannot thank her enough for her partnership in the last year, so thank you, Katie and Wendy. And then finally, I would like to honor Dr. Hairston and Chair Woodbury with a district award for being the 5th top district in the state of North Carolina again this year. Congratulations to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is the public comments on the agenda items. I will first say, unfortunately, we will not have any extensions to the 3-minute time limit that you will have to speak on agenda items only. Please make sure all your comments are addressed to me, your chair. Also, be mindful that we should not discuss any personnel or private student issues, and to just be kind and considerate, of course, with your comments. And lastly, I would just remind the audience that when things get possibly too disruptive or contentious, that I do have the right to end the public comment section. So the first person we have tonight is Michelle Jordan.
Good evening, Dr. Hairston, Chair Woodbury, and
Good
board
evening.
members. I've come tonight just to speak about Brunson Elementary School and the land, and just to encourage you guys to move forward with what you guys are looking at right now. The staff itself, we've looked at the land when it came out this last weekend. We've all been talking about it, and we are excited about the prospect of us moving forward and being a part of the development of that area of downtown, and being able to put together a school that would be awesome and part of that area, and a STEM and all sorts of great things that we can do and be a part of the community there. So I'm encouraging that you guys go forward with what you need to with the due diligence, and then we move forward with purchasing the land so that we can get us into a great new school, because our kids and our staff deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Val Young.
Good evening. I'm
Good
Val
evening.
Young. I'm the full release president of FCAE. I'm standing to thank the board for having the classified salary study. I know that it's hard for us to compare how one job compares to another. We all know, I'm getting ready to preach to the choir. We all know that our classified staff are not making what they should be making for the jobs that they do, but I would like to draw a picture for you. Think about a child riding to school unsafe on a bus. We don't have that, because we have bus drivers that bring our children to school safely each day. And when they get off those buses, they're greeted by TAs who say, "Good morning, how are you, good day," and guide them to the cafeteria for breakfast. As they're getting their breakfast, then you have more people guiding them to classroom. Those same people also push into those classrooms and tutor our students and do instruction. So for us, we think that our classified staff here in the Winston-Salem and Forsyth County School is bar none. It's top notch. I've worked with some top notch teacher assistants, bus drivers. We've had great custodians who are those people in the building who give our children that character development. So we want to thank you for that study. We want to thank you for increasing our classified staff salary, because we know you're going to do the right thing. So I'm going to stop preaching to the choir, and I'm just going to say we thank you for everything that you do for every classified staff in the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Anna Rubin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am a parent at Brunson, and I've also been a teacher off and on in this district for the last 10 years at Sherwood Forest and Hall Woodward and Winston-Salem Prep. I wanted to speak about Brunson tonight, and one of the big draws for Brunson for me is the diverse areas that it pulls from. And I live right across the street, and already a lot of our neighbors in the West Highlands neighborhood choose to send their kids to higher performing schools that are in our zone. And so my fear or my concern with the new site is that that will continue to happen even more, and that it will become an even more segregated school. And my hope is that all of our schools would be integrated, and so I would ask that you consider building a new Brunson on the current site. I know that it's a floodplain, but it's also a very desirable piece of land, and I imagine that it would be very valuable if it was up for sale. Someone would come in and develop it based on the location that it's in. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next, we have Rhonda Mays.
Good evening, Chairwoman Woodbury,
Good evening.
the board, and Dr. Harrison. I'm Rhonda Mays, and I wanted to come forward tonight to ask about the classified study. I'm thinking back to a few years ago. We did a classified study, and some adjustments were made with salaries at that time. And so I'm just a little confused about what this new study will do. And perhaps I'll be more enlightened during your discussion tonight. But one of the things that I want to continue to stress is the importance of making certain our classifieds receive some type of increase this year. Not after a study is done, that's good, but studies take time. And right now, our classifieds have not received any type of an increase for this academic year. So please, 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 I've asked before and I'm continuing to ask now, please find a way to give an increase, a permanent increase, not just some type of a bonus, but an increase to our classifieds this school year. Because it's just not fair that people are still working on last year's funds. So please find a way to make certain our classified staff in the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County School District receive a pay increase. It is deserved, and we know this district cannot function without them. One day in this district without classified, we will crumble. So let's pay close attention to that, and let's honor them with some type of pay increase this academic school year. Thank you in advance for looking into this.
Thank you. Our next order of business is discussion items. The first item is the property for Brunson Elementary School. Colin Moore will come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Harrison, Chair Woodbury, and other members of the board. You have information in your packet about a potential relocate or a property for Brunson Elementary. As many of you know, we've been looking for property, excuse me, as part of the 2016 bond for Brunson Elementary for about 2 years. We've investigated numerous sites. You have a map on the screen. I think you also got in front of you, of what the boundaries of the Brunson site are. Roughly, it's bound by Highway 52 on the east, Northwest Boulevard across to about Thurman Street, and then crosses the Crosnor or Children's Home property over to about Robin Hood Road, goes up Robin Hood to Greenbrier. Greenbrier takes it to Stratford, then Stratford kind of down Miller, a couple blocks past Hawthorne, south of Hawthorne, and then comes across to the south on Ardsley Street over to Peters Creek Parkway, which goes up to Business 40, which is about where the ballpark site is, and then Business 40 to 52. So that kind of designates the boundary zone for Brunson Elementary. We were tasked with trying to find a site in the existing zone, or at least adjacent to. We've investigated numerous sites, and just due to some confidentiality, there wasn't a lot of some of the sites we just didn't have a lot of response from the potential owners or the people that were owning the property. So not a lot of liberty to discuss those. But we evaluate everything from rebuilding on the existing site to combining with maybe on another site of a school, to possibly finding less acreage for the school and building a different type of school than we typically have, a two-story or more one-story school. So we looked at several different options, possibly even having some partnerships where we could have a building that would accommodate not only the school but some other activities and community centers. We really investigated a lot of things, so we're not to the point now where we're recommending any land, but we do have a piece of property that we do want to bring to your attention. And this one is we'll refer to as a Talisman furniture site. This property is bound by Patterson Avenue on the west, Northwest Boulevard on the north, Ivy Avenue on the east, and 11th Street on the south. It's the site of a former Thomasville furniture manufacturing facility. A lot of it is green space. You can see an aerial here in a few minutes. You can see on the screen, kind of designated. There's about a 17-acre site. There's an 8-acre site with the dashed line that's divided by what was formerly 12th Street. So 12th Street has been closed by the city of Winston-Salem. There are still utilities that run in 12th Street, but the street proper has been closed. So we've had the opportunity immediately, or it's available now, for the 8-acre site. We haven't discussed price. We haven't, we've kind of aware of what the listing price is, but we're not coming to you with an offer to purchase this. We're just coming to you to tell you the availability of this property. We feel like we need to be able to utilize some of the other properties south of the remaining 17 acres. Is about 9 acres that's under an option with another entity that they're looking to develop it. They have some uses that are not controversial to a school. It's actually quite complementary to a school site. So we're just trying to work out what some opportunities there would be to have possibly some shared space, or maybe to have more acreage than the 8-acre site would allow. This site is located, and I told you the boundaries, but it's in an area referred to as Industry Hill that's currently being developed. It's kind of the north of downtown. You can see from this view that's on your screen, it's adjacent to Wake Forest Innovation Quarter. It's adjacent to downtown Winston-Salem. And it's kind of the next growth area projected by the Planning Department of the City of Winston-Salem is to go in this Industry Hill area. There's already some development occurring on the south end of Industry Hill, kind of where it ties into the downtown district. It gives you an idea of the property and what we're looking, where the area is located. You can see from this aerial, kind of how the site lays out. You'll notice 11th, on the left of the page is 11th Street, which is that southern boundary. There is some property between this property and Northwest Boulevard that's occupied by Samaritan Ministries. As I mentioned, I think you have in your packet, there's a map that's not quite as good, the aerial, but it identifies some sites as A and B. That's the sites that we currently can take, place an option on, or have an option on, and we could possibly look to purchase. That's currently available. The other sites are C and D that we would like to kind of maybe see if there's an opportunity to purchase some more land. As I mentioned, we need roughly, in addition to the 8 acres, ideally 3 to 4 more acres to be a preferred elementary school site. Gets us circulation and parking, playground space. There's an existing building there. We're still evaluating whether it's feasible to utilize the existing building, or if it makes more sense to demo that building and build a new building on the site. This site has been designated by the existing owners as a Brownfield site, and had a gentleman, as you heard earlier in the Building and Grounds Committee meeting, just informed us that a Brownfield site is an abandoned or idle site where possible environmental concerns have hindered the development, and the Brownfield program is the state's effort to break this barrier. They want to break that barrier of developing these sites. So the Brownfields program is a program that's developed by it's a nationwide program that's controlled by the EPA, but locally it's enforced by the North Carolina Division of Environmental Quality. So it's a state mandated program that allows sites that have some concerns to be developed. As we mentioned in the Building and Grounds Committee meeting, this Brownfields designation is dependent upon the use of the site. So if you're going to build a site for an auto garage, the requirements to remediate or mitigate the site are much different than if it's for a housing, an apartment complex or a school. So depending on what the use is going to determine what those mitigation procedures are from the Brownfields program. We have performed a phase 1 assessment, as I mentioned in the memo to each of you. This has identified some areas of concern that we need to probably investigate. There was an off-site dry cleaner located in the southeast part of the property, probably in the 1930s, that could potentially have introduced some chemicals into the ground. So we'll investigate to see what that is. There was also a transformer located on the north side of the Talisman furniture site that was obviously providing power to the building. We'll investigate what's going on with that. And then just the materials and products that you use for the manufacture of furniture. So those are the items that have been identified in the phase 1 assessment that we performed. We can take that a little bit further as we'll mention in a few minutes. But the purpose of the Brownfields program, after you identify what these concerns are and after making this assessment, the main purpose of the Brownfields program is to make a project economically feasible, and to make it safe for human occupancy to the extent the use requires. Again, I fall back on what that use is. Their intentions are to make it safe for human occupancy, depending on what the use. Obviously, a use for a school, those requirements are going to be much more stringent. And as we go further in this investigation, we can determine what the Brownfields program would recommend to make this project or to make this property suitable for that use. Basically, an eligibility requirement that if you're applying for the Brownfields program, you're not the entity that introduced any of the concerns for the site. You weren't the one that introduced a concern there. And then secondly, is it a project that can be beneficial to the public? So obviously, with both of these scenarios, we would probably qualify for the Brownfields program. So we've been asked, why aren't schools developing on Brownfield sites? And we've investigated, kind of had some questions from around the state, talked to the Brownfields people, talked to city planning. Basically, schools are able to build on existing sites, or they're able to expand on current sites, or there's property available. The more we go along, Grandpa told me one time, they're not making any more land. And so that's kind of what we're into. You know, we're kind of running into the situation where the properties that are available are ones that were developed or that were industrial or manufacturing years and years and years ago. So the Brownfields program is a program that the state has used and developed to help us to mitigate these sites and to make them so that they can be developed. We're identifying this now. We're still early in the stage. We're not asking to extend an offer on this property. We're just asking to move forward with some research and to do some more investigation of this site. There's a lot more to this site than just the Brownfields. We want to kind of have some communication with community, or I'm sorry, have some dialogue with the community. We have a city or a community meeting planned for next, I think it's next Tuesday, the 19th, at Brunson Elementary School in the gymnasium at 6:30. We want to get community input. We want to be able to have the dialogue with community members and identify any concerns or the pros and cons of the site. We want to do an additional assessment in order to make a Brownfields application. You make the Brownfields application, they tell you what mitigation has to occur. And then, of course, we want to determine if we do qualify for Brownfield designation. And then as part of that next steps is to negotiate for some additional property, some of the additional 9 acres that we could utilize for joint use. So that's basically what I have. I want to address any questions or concerns.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Colin. First, are there plots of land big enough in sort of the industrial downtown area that are not going to have these kind of concerns?
I can say that there's some properties that we have identified and that we identified as having enough acreage to accommodate a school. That of those sites, we didn't do any phase 1 assessment, but just knowing the history of what was on those properties, there would appear to be that there could be some concerns, some environmental concerns on those properties that we've evaluated.
So my understanding is if we want to be building schools within the city in general, we are going to be having to address these kind of environmental concerns going forward. Would that be a correct assumption?
I think that would be probably more true than not. Yes, ma'am.
And the other question I had is what kind of safety protections do we get for the public to understand by being a brownfield designation? It sounds like there's a lot of things will be held to and that oversight will be coming from other agencies. Is that correct?
That's correct. So North Carolina Division of Environmental Quality, NCDEQ, is the one that administers that. So if you've got a concern on a site or a property, or they get notice that there's something going on a property, they'll notify you. They'll come to you and say, you've got a school on this property and you've got this potential for contamination. I need to know what your plan is to correct it. Well, what they've done to establish in the Brownfields program is to say, look, you're recognizing there's some environmental issues that need to be discussed. Let's go ahead and address those now. Let's get a plan in place. You tell me what you're going to use the property for. I'll tell you what I need you to do to make the property good for that intended use. And that then they basically are waiving their their ability to come in 5, 6 years down the road and say, time out, you got to get everybody out of here and get this site fixed. They're dealing with the situation up front. So annually, you'll have to do things like say, I'm still using this site to teach kids. You know, I agreed as part of the assessment that I wouldn't drill a well on the site. We haven't drilled a well on the site. And whatever other, right, whatever other mitigation procedures there are, whatever rules, if you will, that the Brownfields program sets up during their assessment, those are the rules that you'll have to adhere to throughout the project, and that's what we want to see, is what those rules are.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is that the whole innovation quarter and the place where the medical school exists, is that an old industrial site? And so people can look at the innovation quarter and say, that seems like a real economic engine for our community. And of course, because the medical school and the PA program are located there, obviously, they've looked at safety. Would it be a similar thing to how they have been able to reclaim using old sites for our new future?
Yes, ma'am. I know that in the development of Innovation Quarter, Wake Forest encountered some environmental concerns. I can't wholeheartedly say that there were Brownfields involvement in every site they did, but I do know they had Brownfields involvements on several of their sites. And again, Brownfields is an optional. Brownfields is an option. So if you've got a site with an environmental concern, you have the option of contacting the Division of Environmental Quality for the state of North Carolina and saying, I want this to be a Brownfields consideration. Tell me what I need to do. It's just because there's an environmental concern on a property doesn't mean that it's a Brownfield site. Brownfields is an option that the ownership group would use to attempt to mitigate, yes.
Okay, so it's really important, I think, for people to understand that so much of the economic engine that is driving the development of our city and our community is indeed built on an old industrial site that is actually a really exciting and interesting place to be.
Yes.
So Colin, earlier you mentioned that when you all had been looking for sites for the new Brunson, that you all came across maybe 19 sites. And I'm thinking about what Chair Woodbury said earlier today, that the safety of our students is our paramount concern. Can you give us a list of some of the sites that would not have brownfield issues for Brunson?
Well, that would be purely speculation on my part. Some of them I can say that they may or may not. I'll be glad to compile that list for you and kind of give you that list of the sites that we've investigated. And when I say investigated, these are just, you know, kind of as a group of our planning department, our real estate people, we would kind of come up and say, where is a potential place that we could put a Brunson? Obviously, we have to have more than a half-acre lot, so we just try to consider some areas in this Brunson district. And these are all areas that we identified in some way, whether it was making a phone call or something. So I'll be glad to compile that list and share it with Ms. Jenkins, and we'll see what we can do. Because some of these do, and in all fairness to the property owners, some of them, the right people in the properties were never contacted because it didn't get far enough that we could, I mean, as you could guess, there's not many places in this area that's got 10 full acres. So some of them we would strike out on half the acreage, and there was no reason to contact the other people. So I'm not really comfortable releasing some of that information just because they never knew they were considered for a site.
Okay, thank you so much for compiling that information so that we'll see what our options are. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got one question, Colin.
Yes, ma'am.
I do believe that you said that there was another school in North Carolina that had built on the Brownfield site. Am I correct in that? And if so, where was that?
Actually, there's not a school been built. I did say that in Building and Grounds that the school had not been built on the Brownfield site. There was a school built adjacent to a Brownfield site, I think in Roanoke Rapids.
Okay.
I haven't had the opportunity to dig into that further.
Okay.
But I do have an email in to request some more information about that. But no,
Okay, so it was adjacent to.
Correct.
I misunderstood. Thank you for
Yes.
clarifying
You're
that.
welcome.
Any more questions? Thank you, Colin.
All right, thank you.
The next discussion item is the Public Consulting Group Amendment and Extension by Mary Todd Allen.
I wasn't prepared to speak on that tonight, so any questions you might have about that?
Well, I just have it on the agenda for discussion. I don't know, Superintendent Harrison, if you have any.
That was just approval. Share what it is. Okay, I'm sorry. Public Access Group provides sign language interpretation for families and substitutes also when the child's interpreter is not available. We need them in emergencies. Also, families who come to meetings and need interpretation, they provide that as well. They also provide some interpretation for Spanish-speaking families at IEP meetings, at school meetings, and any activity where there needs to be an interpreter. We contract with them on a case-by-case basis, so it only costs us when we use them.
Thank you. Any questions? I think, though, you need to stay up here for another discussion item.
I'm trying to run.
Yeah, the Communication Access Partners contract. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there's a question for Board Member Parker.
So so we would use this service in addition to what we use for IEPs the state provides now, is that correct?
The state doesn't provide any service for interpretation. Many of the schools have someone in their staff that provides that service, but on occasion when there's no one available, there might be multiple meetings and we don't have an interpreter, we have to have someone. And Communication Access Partners, we've used them for several years to fill that need.
So the other things it looks like in this contract, though, that to give support for the IEP modules, is that a part of this contract as well?
It is, and it's only as an as-needed basis. So if a parent needs to have a copy of an IEP in their native language, we can produce that.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
And Mary, there's also the PCG amendment Mary, I'm over here.
Yes.
The PCG amendment is on there as well, as well as the Communication Access Partners, so just FYI.
Right, and those are two different ones. So Communication Access Partners provides the verbal interpretation at IEP meetings, and the PCG, again, is on an as-needed basis, will produce an IEP in a language that a family would need in their native language. It's not something we would be charged for unless we used it.
I think now we can go to the Communication Access Partners. That was the, okay, sorry. I thought that Marilyn, my Board Member Parker was asking based on the Public Consulting Group, but okay.
They're both similar.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's all that we have for you. Thank you. The next the next order of business is the Cooperative Strategies Consulting Agreement by Dr. Harrison.
Thank you, Chair Woodbury, members of the board. I have this evening a proposal here from Cooperative Strategies. We had a committee working earlier on school choice, climate and culture, and we realized as we delved into the work that there was more work to be done relative to school choice, a little bit out of the scope of our committee. In addition, we realized that we have some redistricting that needs to happen due to opening of new schools, and that will come from a partnership with the North Carolina State University. So I wanted to share the scope of services because there's been a lot of questions about where do I insert myself. relative to the committee. So I want to go forward and just go over the task that Cooperative Strategies has agreed to complete as a part of the scope of work. The deliverables. Task 1 is they'll facilitate plan for planning work sessions. So upon approval, we would schedule, we've got a tentative date of November 15th based on your approval to meet with them to develop the timeline and scope of work. Task 2 will be determine the cost of quality. How much are we really willing to invest in academics for our children relative to a choice program? Task 3, establish a foundational space for standards for choice. And this is where they will really start to work with us internally and some of our committee members to look at questions and the work that has already happened, as well as analyzing the gaps between the space for standards and those available in facilities. How much space do we really have for choice? What's the standard for quality? And are we meeting those standards? They'll look in Task 4 at historical enrollment and enrollment projections to give us some idea about what are popular programs, who's enrolling in these programs, what do they look like. They'll work with geocoding. The CS will geocode the school district's current enrollment, school points, and boundaries, noting where current school choice programs are located. And while we think we know where they are, they'll be more specific about what's choice, what's magnet, and so forth and so on. They'll conduct leadership interviews in Task 6. Committee meetings, the first committee meeting will follow those leadership interviews. After we meet on the 15th, should this be approved, we will schedule a committee meeting back with the original committee just to go over the findings and gather more information to outline the process even further. Task 8, they will prepare a background report following that committee meeting. And then they start the visioning process in Task 9. The visioning process is to use the data, the cost analysis to start to work toward what do we want this to look like. In Task 10, they'll meet back with the committee. The second meeting held will update the committee on the cost of and sort of a quality analysis. How much do we want to spend? What do we want to do? What are the options? And of course, inform them of outcomes of the meetings with school district leadership and obtain feedback. And all along the way, surveys will be given to parents and community members to determine whether or not some of the programs are viable and how we want to proceed. And this has to be done in conjunction with the redistricting effort to inform redistricting, because all of this is going on at the same time. Task 11 will be one-to-one school board meetings, and then, of course, open session meetings to our public. And Task 12 will be options for work sessions, which we will help them determine. Task 13 is to prepare a draft of our options to present to our public and our committee. And again, a work session following all of this. Task 16 is to refine options, final report, committee presentation, and school board presentation. And so at the end of our initial meeting, we will assign a timeline to each one of these tasks and then forward that to you all, so you'll have an idea about committee meetings, timeline for reports being due to you. But ultimately, this organization has done phenomenal work, and other districts will provide some guidance about what looks like quality choice, what programs are viable, what programs are not viable, and then how to best transition to a better plan. And again, I commit, and the team is aware of the committee and the committee's work, and commit to working side by side with the committee, knowing that they will guide the professional aspect and then bring in, I know we had some folks on board to work on questions, so they will incorporate that work along the way. Okay, any questions?
The cost is what again? 120, and
that was that page I took out at one time because I didn't want y'all swayed
you
by
want us
that.
to see that.
But no, it's 120. I think the final contract was, it's about 120. Let me go back. 120.18, right.
And where do we pay that from?
And they do have the, from contracted services, from professional services. And they do have the credentials of all of the folks involved in this work. Okay?
Oh, I think Board Member Parker has a question.
And so we would use each one of those components. I mean, they have it nicely drafted out with the cost of each of those, but we would use all of those, correct? With all, and these go
Yes.
along with that, correct?
This is a massive amount of work, and again, working with other entities is well worth the outcome. Gives us a professional viewpoint and presentation, and again, they come recommended from other districts who've done this kind of work. Okay, so thank you very much.
I think you have one more report, the classified salary study by
All right.
MMG.
I'm gonna be like Ms. Todd here, trying to get out of the thing here. I'm excited about this opportunity. And so I did look back at a previous study that was completed. There was a job description study. They analyzed all of our job descriptions and felt good about that work. But we know we've heard quite a bit about our classified compensation. So this study specifically will focus on that study. And some of the work that will be included will be groups, the job functions, skills, knowledge, and experience will be analyzed. And we'll look at essential responsibilities. We could just hold it right there, Kevin. And it will be market sensitive. One of the areas that we know is we have market values relative to job. We heard that from Mr. Walker today, talking about our mechanics and our plumbers and skilled trades. So it will be market sensitive, and we'll make recommendations at the conclusion that are fiscally responsible to the board relative to this study. So the first aspect of it is to develop compensation strategy and define objectives and from stakeholders. So we have to define the scope of work. They will conduct job evaluations and classification by position. We know that a lot of our classified employees do a lot more than what's on that job description, so we need to make sure we're clear on that. They'll review current classifications and compensation for classified employees relative to the market, meaning relative to corporate America if a job exists, and relative to the county pay that's out there in other school districts. If you'll scroll up a little bit, we'll report findings to stakeholders with recommendations. It'll be a public document, and they will create a salary structure based on you all's approval relative to the improvements. So this will result in a recommendation for improvements in the salaries of classified. My experience has been that some of it will be increasing hourly rates, and some of it will be a percentage of increases to improve cost of living. We'll find that some don't really won't require addressing at this time, but it'll be a fair, objective study. And then also, they will recommend a system for creating a sustainable effort here, so that we're not looking at increases all at one time, as was mentioned earlier, that is something that we sustain over time. And that will be the scope of work. The plan is to have the study completed in February and no later than March, which is also indicated on the first pages of the plan. Okay.
I would like to request to the superintendent that we take a look at the work that the group, the Asset Building Coalition of Forsyth County is doing. Today, board members Calvert Hayes and board member Crowder, we were at this event, and it was billed the Dismantling the Benefits Cliff in Forsyth County. And so many of our classified people could be affected by, once we pay them more, then they lose their benefits, and then they're worse off with more money. So we definitely need to work in unison with this initiative that's going on in Forsyth County.
Certainly, if we'll make note of that, then we'll certainly bring that into the scope of work.
And just one other question or comment. I know that when we've spoken to the county commissioners before about salaries for our classified employees, has you spoken to Dudley Watts or the county commissioners about, would they accept these findings when we go to talk about negotiating the formula?
So we specifically talked to Dudley Watts, and he has given us a contact in the Department of Human Resources, and the consultant, Wal Martin, has agreed to work with that individual so that they better understand what's going on when we go to budget. So they are well aware of the study, and they requested that we work with their contact, and
Okay.
we've agreed to do that.
I just wanted to make sure, given that that had come up at committee meetings with them, that we were on board before we spent the money.
Yes, we have agreed to do that.
Thank you.
And I think it's real important. I learned a lot today at the meeting that I went to. And I think it's real important to us to look at what raises could do to some of our employees and put them in making less than they were making to start with and losing benefits. So I think this is something that we really need to carefully proceed at doing.
But what I will say to the public is that I was encouraged by the work that's being done by this group, because they're proposing innovative ways to circumvent the system so that our employees could get the money without losing their benefits. But again, we just need to be very intentional with working with the group so that we know how to give them the additional ideal salary.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next discussion item is the beginning teacher play by Judy Jones. And Sydney Conger, sorry.
What's that? Good evening, Board. Dr. Harrison, thank you for having us tonight. I'm a little short for this. I know you haven't noticed that yet. But anyway, so we just wanted to go over a bit about the Core Academy. Every year we have to develop a beginning teacher support plan, and it has to be approved through the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Board, and then it will go on through the state Board of Education as well. So tonight we just want to hit a few bullets on what we've been doing for our Core Academy, which is what I just want to pick this thing up and walk with it or something. which is what we've been doing since the beginning of the school year. When we open up the school year, we have 3 days of the Core Academy, and that's for our brand new baby beginning teachers. And those 3 days are just filled with lots of events, a lot to take in, but we make it a very special time for them. And yes, for those of you who've known me in the school system for a long time, and yes, I'm back doing that, and it has just been a real blessing. Quit laughing, okay? She's looking like, what's she doing back? Anyway, so we do lots of networking during that time. We do lots of staff development, professional development during that time. We go over licensure requirements, ways to get their licensure if they happen to be what we used to refer to as lateral entry. We also go over legal issues, and just so they meet a good group of hardworking people in our school system that will provide all the information that they need. Then, throughout the school year, we have, coaching sessions, if you will, and throughout those times, that is when actually it's me, and I I'm out into the field, and I get to go out and help the beginning teachers, and we talk about a lot of things. It is non-evaluative, so we can be very transparent, and I even do a little coaching with them as far as them being able to build radar in their classroom for classroom management. We do lesson planning. We talk about parent conferencing. We talk about what they're doing with their mentor. And we just, and pretty much, we got to help the spirit and the soul. And so that's what I get to do, and I'm very happy to be doing that. Then they have the opportunity, and in the past we've done this, where we have a fall session and a spring session that contains content training. In the past, we have used Title II funds to pay for a substitute so they could come over and attend these half-day training sessions. And we would like to continue to do that, or we want to make sure they get their content sessions, because that's really important for our beginning teachers. And it gives them a chance to even come up with questions that they may have, because right now they're not really sure what to ask. So then they also are assigned a trained mentor for 3 years. Now I'm going to turn that part over to Sydney, and y'all need to look at her like, what you doing back too? So Sydney?
Good evening. We just couldn't stay away. As Judy said, she is out in the schools working with our beginning teachers, and I'm here trying to do the things that she needs support with. One of the things that I do is help to train our mentors. In the state of North Carolina, all beginning teachers in their first, second, third year must be assigned a trained mentor. There is a criteria that we send out to principals when they're looking for folks in their building to be trained. In our system, we go to our principals first and we say, who do you want trained in your building? And at that point, we send them the information, which is an online 10-hour training with the state of North Carolina. Once they complete that 10-hour training, they actually come in to see me for what we call a local requirement session. And we've put together a little manual here that they receive that has all of their requirements in it. The big requirement for a mentor is, first of all, to accept the assignment and to meet with their mentee at least once a week. And we ask that that meeting is a time that they set aside, a scheduled time where they're sitting down, having good conversation about what's happening with that beginning teacher. And we do understand there are some weeks where it's hard to meet, but they are still required to make a weekly contact. The other requirement is they must complete what we call a mentor log. And it's a one-page sheet that just indicates the time that they met, the date that they met, and a quick blurb about what they're working with their beginning teacher on. Those mentor logs must be signed by the mentor, the mentee, and the principal, because we want principals to understand what's happening with that beginning teacher and the mentor relationship. And we get a copy in our office here just to make sure that mentors are following through with their requirements. We do have some retired teachers that serve as mentors. We do have some schools that have a wealth of mentors, but then we do have some schools that do not. So the state has allowed us to use retired teachers. But we do ask for documentation from principal as to why they feel the need to have to use those retired teachers. So we do have a small pool that, like Judy and I, can't leave, and they're coming back and they're serving as mentors in our system. So that's just a little bit about the mentor program. As long as the state has updated mentor training along the past several years. So when that training is updated, we do bring in all the mentors that have been trained, and we ask that they go back through the training if there are updates. Mentors do have standards that they have to follow, just like the standards that we have when we're evaluating teachers. So there are standards for mentors. And mentors are required, well, not required, but they can be asked to go in to do an observation. The state of North Carolina says a beginning teacher must have 3 observations by an administrator, and then 1 either by the mentor that's assigned to them or a peer teacher. So we leave that up to the principal as to who goes in to do that 4th observation. So we talk with mentors. That's part of their training, is the whole evaluation process. And the other things that they are going to find that they're going to be helping their beginning teacher with. So I'm going to turn that back over to Judy. And I'll be glad if anybody would like to see a copy. We have plenty of these, and this is our little manual that we use in our system.
Are there any questions for us?
Turn my mic on, sorry. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you for having us. It's good to see you guys.
Good to see you, too.
All your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, on the discussion items, we have the Curriculum Committee report by Vice Chair Barbara Burke.
Good evening. The Curriculum Committee met on November 4th. The first discussion item was led by Dr. Donna Cannon to discuss the Teacher Academy and the purpose for the Teacher Academy. And we were told that the purpose is to reward and retain great teachers, and the results of doing this is in the improvement of student outcomes. I'm sorry, no glasses. Ms. Cannon introduced several teacher leaders to us from elementary, middle, and high school, and each of these leaders had a dynamic testimonial that they gave us and told us about the kind of support and professional development, the technology, and the coaching used to impact student outcomes. She also recognized Dr. Marty Ward for providing a lot of hard data for teacher leaders, administrators, and as well as the impact on student outcomes. Next, Ms. Angela Hubbard shared a link on college and career-ready graduates, and the link was for Senate Bill 561, which requires students who do not meet college and college-ready proficiency to be enrolled in remedial modules in English and in math during their senior year. This will impact current North Carolina high school juniors, class of 2021 and beyond. Ms. Hubbard stated that the delivery of remediation would be through English 4 and math, and is being developed by local North Carolina community colleges in partnership with school districts. Mrs. Velvet Symington, Director of Mathematics, indicated that she would provide additional training for math teachers during the summer of 2020. Next, we heard from Dr. Sam Mills on a textbook update and adoption. Dr. Mills presented a summary of the adoption schedule for English Language Arts for 2021, Mathematics for 2021, Science for 21-22, and Social Studies for 2022-2023, including the anticipated cost, which also includes embedded training. He noted that the district received approximately $2 million from the state, and that many of our textbooks were over 10 years old. Next, we heard from Dr. Cato regarding new courses. He provided an update on new courses to be added with the additional cost of these courses, if applicable, and he discussed the recommendations for the individual courses. The Curriculum Committee made a motion for this information to be presented before the full board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? The next discussion item is the Climate, Culture, and Equity Special Committee report by Board Member Deanna Kaplan.
Thank you. The committee meeting was called to order on November 4th. The new Director of Equity, Effie McMillan, provided a brief introduction and bio. Ms. McMillan summarized her upbringing and her previous work in equity issues in Guilford County. She reminded the committee that this work takes time. If there was an easy answer for eliminating inequities in education, then there would have already have occurred. Ms. McMillan stated that she is excited to begin work for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. Dr. Marty Ward provided an overview of the equity audit that was conducted using data from the staff equity survey conducted in October of 2019 and a preview of the student panorama survey results from 2019 to 2020. Dr. Ward explained that for the staff equity audit, various stakeholders, good online surveys, including SIT team members, central office monitoring team members, instructional facilitators, and school counselors, and the response rates ranged from 61% to 90% of those surveyed. In her presentation, Dr. Ward summarized the 5 most favorable results and the 5 least favorable results from the staff survey. Finally, Dr. Ward provided a preview of the panorama data gathered from student surveys. Several members of the committee asked questions and had suggestions for additional data to gather, including the race of the responder. Dr. Ward clarified that the questions can be added to the survey for future collection, but that all responses were collected anonymously in the previous survey. Overall, the committee felt that the data collected during the equity audit was helpful information as to student and staff concerns regarding climate. Dion Jenkins, General Counsel, provided an overview of the proposed equity policy. Ms. Jenkins described that the proposed policy was drafted after consideration of the sample policies that were reviewed by the committee, the submissions from outside groups, and the feedback collected from the committee in previous meetings. She stated that the policy was designed to capture action steps for each pillar, while also establishing that the purpose of the policy is to establish a framework for how equity will drive the work of the district. Several members of the committee had suggestions and feedback about changes to the proposed policy. Excuse me. They also expressed a desire to continue discussions at a future committee meeting after they had sufficient time to review. Ms. Kaplan stated that the next meeting is December 2nd, 2019, and that the committee could meet at 5 p.m. in order to allow sufficient time to discuss changes to the policy. Meeting was adjourned.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. The next discussion item is the Finance Committee report, again by Board Member Deanna Kaplan.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met today at 4 o'clock. Frida Lashmet gave us an update on the 2019-2020 state budget through a PowerPoint presentation. Essentially, we still don't have a budget. House Bill 377 and Senate Bill 354 were both passed by the House and the Senate and were presented to Governor Cooper on November 1st. House Bill 377, the Teacher STEP Act, which includes principal bonuses and recruitment supplements, passed and was enacted into law. Senate Bill 354, about strengthening Educators' Pay Act, Part 1 and Part 2, was vetoed by the governor. Ms. Lashmet also discussed how the assistant principal supplements are tied directly to the $71.50 per month teacher supplements from the $3.7 million in special funding from the county in September. Assistant principals did not receive an increase in their supplemental pay in September, so Ms. Lashmet requested direction on giving the assistant principals the increase. So motion to include assistant principals in supplement pay was approved and will move to the action item tonight at the board of our meeting. Ms. Lashmet also showed us the monthly expenditures and revenues from the format that Dr. Hairston used in Georgia. It includes the state, local, and restricted grant funds. It shows a picture of October 31st, 2018 and October 31st, 2019. Last year, we collected 32% in revenues, and this year, we've collected 29.63%. We should have been at 33% by the end of October. We're a little bit behind on collecting revenue. Expenditures are at 31.02%, slightly below spending from the first quarter. We just need to get our revenues up. Lastly, the auditors are making changes, and we are not able to get the exact fund balance amount, but will soon. There was discussion on our system control. It was noted that about 90% of our budget is personnel, and we currently have no position control, and we're also working to redesign the HR report. It was recommended that when the board approves contracts, to identify budget codes beforehand to see where the money is coming from. Meeting was adjourned.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? The last discussion item is the Building and Grounds Report by Board Member Leah Crowley.
Thank you. Buildings and Grounds met today at 4:30, and the items that were discussed and acted upon included a pre-apprentice program through our maintenance department, in which we give students in our system the opportunity to train and get experience in trades where shortages exist. So this is like for plumbing, electricity, carpentry, those type of trades. And we have 3 students participating in this program, and we're hoping to expand that. And the idea is that we'll expand it through the career development coaches in the high schools. We also talked about the bond projects for maintenance and capital projects for 2020, and the schools that will be getting repairs done are Jefferson Elementary, Louisville Elementary, Old Richmond Elementary, Piney Grove, Sedge Garden, and Union Cross Elementary schools. We also have a long list of surplus vehicles, mobile classrooms, the contents in the old Paisley Middle School, and 7,500 Chromebooks that will all be available for purchase. We also went over contracts for the demolition of the former Paisley Middle School, and also for the construction of the addition at Eastside Elementary School. And we talked about Brunson Elementary School for the property that was shown here tonight by Mr. Moore. And the meeting for that, the community meeting for people interested in the new location of Brunson is November 19th at 6:30 p.m. in the Brunson gym. And there was one announcement: the Child Nutrition Department has a new employee, and they are also doing, through the Operations Department, a toy drive. Boxes will be available throughout the school district, and this will occur between November 18th and December 6th. And the recipients will be children enrolled in Head Start. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? The next order of business is action items. The first item is to consider approval of the PCG Amendment and extension. Is there a motion? Any questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the CAP contract. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the approval of the Cooperative Strategies Consulting Contract.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the Cooperative Strategies Consulting Contract. Is there a motion?
So moved.
That's what we just did.
Second.
Did we just do that?
That's the one we just did.
Oh, okay, sorry.
There's a long list.
It is. Mr. Jabbar, I got it. The next item is to consider approval of the contract with MMG. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? I'll approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the new courses.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? I'll approve. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the Philo Hill Magnet Academy schematic drawings.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
There is one piece there
Okay.
that there is a meeting set up with the neighborhood group there, and we'll take their feedback into consideration. But these are just schematic drawings. It's not the
Okay.
final construction drawing.
What's the date of that meeting? Do you remember?
Dr. Hairston might know, or they were
That's
getting
fine.
a date.
Yeah, we're working on a
Right, they're
date
working
with,
on a date for that.
Okay.
Ms. Carolyn. Mhm.
Okay. All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the 2020 maintenance and capital projects funded by the 2016 bond project. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Did you get that, Dion? This thing? Okay. Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the disposition of surplus vehicles. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the disposition of surplus for mobile classroom trailers. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the disposition of surplus for the Paisley Middle School building and contents. Any questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the contract for demolition of Paisley Middle School. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the contract for Eastside Elementary School addition. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of preferred alternatives. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Any questions or discussion? All approve. Any opposed? Motion carries. The last action item is the consider approval of the contract for Carrie Crutchfield. Any questions or discussion?
I do have a question.
Yep.
I know that we are looking for a permanent, position, for this, and I wondered for the contract, if we were to interview and get someone in that we felt good with, how would that affect this contract?
It would not at this time. We know we have to get through budget, and a new person would need some support in the budget, and we know that, hope she doesn't mind me announcing, but Frida will be leaving us in March, and so we will need support through the end of the year.
So if someone were to come in and we felt good about that person, would we wait to hire them, or how would we do that with a contract in place?
We would bring them on board, but unless they have significant school budgeting experience, which we might be able to find, and at this time, the tentacles out there haven't been successful, we probably will find a good CPA, but school finance and governmental accounting is quite different. So we'll have to measure that but we do need to be able to walk through a full budget cycle. And Mr. Crutchfield will be open to adjustments once we can determine who we hire. It's hard to say without knowing who the candidate will be.
And I just would like to say that Carrie Crutchfield has really been an extraordinary person, and I am grateful personally that he continues to want to work for our district.
I would just like to ask the superintendent, I know that in the finance committee, you suggested that we may be working with an agency as we approach that timeline that the state has given us for having a CFO in place if we don't have one. If we get to the point where we go with an agency until we get a new CFO, would we still have to contract with Kerry Crutchfield? And I ask that because although I'm grateful for Mr. Crutchfield being able to come and help us now, I do know he's retiring, and so I don't want to press our luck with, continuing to kind of labor him beyond retirement.
So the agency is to recruit and find us a CFO, not to really complete the services. So the agency's work is to, as a headhunter, is to find someone capable of the job. And right now, it is not appearing that we will have someone who's in that area who is a CPA. So the contract assures that we have some cushion to support a new CFO, and of course, I'm sure that Ms. Crutchfield is amenable to adjusting that once we find out, the credentials of who we're going to hire. But we also are facing a December 1st deadline with DPI and our current situation, and so we want to make sure that we send a message that we've got qualified people in position to hold us up during this time. Mm-hmm.
Are there any additional questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Did you get?
Yes.
Okay. The next order of business is the consent agenda item.
Chair?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
wait.
I don't mean to interrupt. We added an action
Action
item for
item.
approval of the AP supplement.
Sorry, exactly. Is there a motion to approve the assistant principal supplements?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is the consent agenda items. Is there a motion to approve the general personnel report, approval of the September 10th, 2019 board meeting minutes, and approval of the October 22nd, 2019 board meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
I did send a typo to Joette, but I'm not sure if that was the right person to send it to.
Okay.
She'll get it to them.
Okay, thanks.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Now I would like to yield to the superintendent to introduce some new employees that we have.
Yes, I'm very excited to bring to you this evening the position of Chief Human Resources Officer. There was a panel interview, and I did interview the final applicant, Javelin, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Bonner Reed. Please stand and be recognized as our new Chief Human Resources Officer. She will begin December 16th. Welcome. And the second applicant here is Nicolette Grant. Will serve as our Chief Academic Officer. Please stand and be recognized as she comes to us from Guilford. And finally, Dr. Sam Mills will join me as Interim Chief of Staff, so please stand and be recognized. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tonight, we do not have any we don't have any public comments tonight, Mr. Harvey. Thank you.
One minute. I forgot to put my name on, but I want to say one thing, if I can.
Okay, come on up, Mr. Harvey.
Take 1 minute. Chairwoman Woodbury, distinguished board, Dr. Harrison. I just would like to bring to your attention.
Thank you for joining us on your school channel, Cable 2.